the number of homelessness in our community. Over this 12-month period, the Barnstable Police Community Impact Unit have had contact in excess of 400 individuals, which is approximately the same number in Nova Shelter. Across the last 12 months, they too had a number of just over 400. So this is a good solid number for the number of homeless individuals that have been in the town of Barnstable for the last 12 months. This is a video, 5 individuals, group of homeless individuals down on the main green. This is August 18th at 4:22 in the afternoon. If you see the gentleman with the not wearing a shirt, the white male, you see that he's about to shoot up. You also see a black female sitting on the bench. She's about to do the exact same thing. This is in broad daylight, August 18th, 4:20, the Hyannis Town Green. All of these individuals were subsequently identified. None of these individuals are staying in the shelter. Most of these individuals are staying in the camps along Old Colony Boulevard. You see she's taking the tourniquet off her arm. Homeless camps, this is a homeless camp which is up off of 65 Old Yarmouth Road. This is one of the larger camps. It takes up a vast amount of property. There was only one individual staying at this camp. This camp has already been cleaned up and has been removed. This camp is located on the Hyannis Water Department property on their watershed. And there are numerous other camps similar to this, smaller in size. Some of the town councils took the time to tour some of the camps. Since then, we've also cleaned up 6 other camps along Old Colony Boulevard and Nantucket Street and down to the rear of St. Pope John's High School. And social service agencies. We have identified 72 agencies that provide some type of service to the homeless community. What I am saying is their close proximity to Main Street and the fact that they're all congested in one area, primarily along Main Street, and then study after study done, when you have this many social service agencies all centered around a small geographical area, it will have a negative impact on the surrounding neighborhoods. We all now finally in agreement that the shelter is probably not situated in the best possible location. We are all on board now and working incredibly hard to move that shelter, which will be providing better service to the clientele that use the shelter, and again, hopefully address all the challenges that Main Street has. With that, thank you for your time, and happy to answer any questions.
Dear, but for the grace of God, go all of us. So, I'm glad we're having this discussion again. It's unfortunate that we have to continue, and we're seeing the numbers escalate. So obviously, this has come to a head, and something has to be corrected and changed.
I wanted to speak a little bit about the issue because I want to make sure that everybody understands that we understand how sensitive it is up here, and that we don't think that moving the shelter is going to fix everything. We do think that moving the shelter is going to fix some things, or I do. I'll speak for myself. I believe it will fix some things on Main Street, but I believe the bigger problem is going to be the camps and the people that are living in the woods, the people who don't want the housing, who aren't seeking the shelter. I just want everyone to know that I'm very sensitive to human services. I'm very sensitive to providing help to people who are interested in helping themselves, people who want to move on, people who can't help themselves. I want to help those people, but at this point, with these costs escalating at this rate, it's akin to having a hole in your gas tank and just filling up your car every day. And so what we need to do is kind of take an aerial view of what's happening and really apply stopgap measures where necessary. So I want to make sure it's clear that I don't expect the people from NOAA to solve all of our problems by moving the shelter. I don't expect that. But I do think it's a good step in the right direction, and that we together as a community, if we engage the right resources, can move the ball forward and over a period of time.
Count of number of chronically homeless individuals in Boston in 2015, and I don't have specific granular boots on the ground the way that your community impact is. their count was 600 in the city limits of Boston. Not just veterans, that's the entire homeless population in the Boston city limits.
That seems low. That seems low.
It seems low,
Only
but
because I can tell you, I think the Pine Street Inn alone can handle almost that much, that many individuals.
it's the source 2015 City of Boston annual homeless census. But my point being, while it may seem low, ours seems, in the city limits of Hyannis, strikingly high, and very close to that. If your community impact unit is seeing 400 alone in the town limits, in the village limits of Hyannis, compared to the 2015 count of 600 on the streets of Boston, I wanted to drive that home. And I can forward this on and give people more specific information, but I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you for your time.
A letter from the Town Council to the Housing Assistance Corporation asked for some data, list of services from Housing Assistance Corporation that they provide, where the clients from, and how do they determine residency?
That's a long list of questions. I did send some written comments to the councilors, and then I followed it up earlier this week. I think, the chief used the number of 400, and we came up with the number of 422 different individuals who used the NOAA shelter during the fiscal year 15, which...
In 1984, one of your members, Paul Hebert, Paul point him out, it's all his fault, served on a town committee, and he came to me, what was then in my office on the second floor of the now NOAA building, and asked me if we would be willing to open a shelter for homeless individuals. And I remember the moment very well because it was a horrible thought as far as I was concerned. We were a housing agency, I didn't want to do it. I challenged him with to go through the reasons why other organizations couldn't do it and so forth. And we responded and did it. And so the first year it was in the Armory. As people know, there were 28 to 30 beds in the Armory. And then the second year, starting in Christmas of 1986, it moved into the building that used to be our office that is on Winter Street now.
Until I said, really? He was just arrested for pushing drugs on the people that you swore to protect with this job. Like, I just expect more of a cohesive effort and more understanding than that, than to just allow the problem to continue that way. I feel like if we're responsible for people who can't care for themselves, we really need to be leaders and protect the people who need the help. So it's that's always really bothered me. And then to go for the walk in the woods with the chief of police and the community impact unit and Deputy Chief Sonnabend and see the way these people are living. It's kind of picking the low-hanging fruit to take the people who knock on your door and want shelter. The people who really need the help are the ones that can't be housed. And then on top of that, to have the police write their own grant to get a caseworker to help them in the woods, who was there when we went for our tour of the homeless camps. I have to say, I feel like they're police officers. They're not caseworkers. Their job is to carry a gun and protect us, not to help the people in the woods. That is a social services issue. They are not a social services agency, neither is the town of Barnstable. And so I'm going to be really clear that I expect more from the social services agencies in this town. If we have 72 of them in my little precinct, then I think we ought to be a little more protected, and we ought to be really making an effort, and we ought to be really making a difference. And if we were, I wouldn't care if we spent $500,000 of Chief's budget on that. Go, Chief. Great, but we're not really making a difference. We still have 100 people in the woods, a binder of 400 people. And people, honestly, Greg, you had said, Mr. Barr, I'm sorry, when we went by the homeless shelter, you had said that you had 5 or 6 people that had been there on the order of years. And that's not in this document, Mr. Sweeney. So I'm very, very concerned about this model. And I'm very thankful that you're on board with the steering committee. I think it's fantastic. I think it's a fantastic idea to move the shelter. I think it's a better idea to change the model of the shelter and have a little more accountability for the taxpayer dime. And I'm glad Councilor Kennedy mentioned the EMS services, because we haven't examined that. But that's supported by people like me and Alan Feltham. billboard, billboard, sorry, and our friends here in Hyannis, we pay for that. And we need to pay attention to where our money goes. It takes a long time to earn my property taxes. So I thank you for coming tonight. I know it's a challenging conversation. I'm a little fired up, as you can imagine. So I look forward to more discussions, but I will be looking for benchmarks, and I will be looking for some real serious deliverables. And because I just feel like this is really nice and soft, but it doesn't make me feel good about my money. So thank you.
Lou Gonzaga, Village of Hyannis, President and Town Council. I'm going to be speaking as an official in the town. I'm a constable and also as a private citizen. Now, where I'm going to attack tonight, 10 years ago, I was here about the homeless. Build it and it will come. You did build all the social programs. The ones that are benefiting from it are the ones that got the jobs in the social programs, but they're not out in the street and doing the jobs. We need to hold accountability on it. 10 years ago, I gave a package. Each town councilor had it, and it's probably on record, about Noah Shelter. They were cooking. They were cooking food. They were cooking drugs 10 years ago. You're hearing numbers from the police. I believe the numbers from the police are more correct than the other agencies because they're justifying trying to stay operating. That needs to stop. What we need to do as a town is get together and state to these people, do your job, because this is a great town. The other thing we're missing here, and I'm looking around, where's the senator? Where's the rep? He should be here, because you're going to need funding from him. And I heard the other terror, which I hate, and I'll finish, Cape Cod Commission. There were the costs. Don't find housing for the people. Find them jobs so they can afford housing. Cape Cod has always been anti-business, and so has the town of Barnstable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzaga. Anyone else?
My name is Irene Elmer. Oh, sorry. My name is Irene Elmer. I'm from a resident in Hyannis. I have to make a couple of comments just based upon what I've heard tonight. I think it's time, instead of looking outside of Barnstable, which we should as well, we have to look at ourselves. We have to look within the town of Barnstable, not just in Hyannis, but in the whole town. I watched the town council a couple of months ago when they talked about setting up habitat homes in Marston's Mills. The first thing that people said was water. I listened to them, the water quality. I listened to them and I thought to myself, I live in an absolutely beautiful spot in Hyannis. The marsh, which we call the swamp, abuts us. On the other side of that is Old Colony. In this beautiful, beautiful section where I can see this marsh from my backyard and from my deck, I can also see tents. I can hear people screaming in the early mornings. I go into the shelters or the camps. My neighbor goes into the camps. I get so aggravated, so frustrated, because that is town of Barnstable land. Some of you have blamed the social services. We have people living in the camps in our own property. And a lot of us have been complaining about it for years. We have gone in. We have seen the bottles. We have seen from one of the camps, my backyard. We have seen the needles, the human waste. And you, Mr. Crocker, spoke about you don't want shelter or whatever near a school. What about our Hyannis kids? Pope John Paul is near some of the camps. That's our neighborhood. That's our neighborhood that we have been complaining about, we have been talking about for years. Our kids work on Main Street. Our kids go into McKeon Field. They go through Old Colony. I was walking, as I do every day, that's our neighborhood. And there was somebody building or knocking down trees or whatever in the woods. And so I went in, as I do because I get so frustrated. We're tired of calling the police. They're so busy Jen Ellis, Jean, Jason, Chief McDonald, they do an absolutely wonderful job. I have seen them in the library treat people with such dignity. It makes me so proud of how our police force is.
If you could just wrap it up.
Okay, but I go in, my neighbor goes in. There's a young man from Georgia, he told me, living there. 4 months he's been living in a camp opposite my backyard. That's what we are dealing with. How about looking at ourselves and finding housing within the town of Barnstable, emergency shelters, and calling people living in the camps in our town of Barnstable conservation land property, setting up zero tolerance there and finding places in the town of Barnstable, maybe former schools. But that's something that we have to do.
Thank you very much.
My name's Peter Cross, and she's a tough act to follow. She's my next door neighbor, has been for years. I too live on the far side of what we call the swamp for river kids, the marsh. The Conservation Commission considers it a wetland. The town of Barnstable has been the most welcoming host you can imagine. Somebody mentioned tonight that they had been here in 1970 something. My family's been on Highland Street since 1922. The homeless problem in our backyards started in the 70s and continues. Last week, when Chief McDonald and his officers went in, I moseyed on down because I wanted to see it, because you hear all this stuff and you read letters in the paper, they bulldozed it, they did this, they did that. It was baloney. They treated him with dignity, they gave him fair warning, and the one thing that you as counselors need to do is you need to find the intestinal fortitude to say, this is our town land. Don't be the host anymore. They took a Bobcat loader in there. The chief talked about his costs. How about the cost of the Bobcat loader and two dump trucks full of trash, needles, all kinds of stuff to the dump? And they said to me, we could have kept going, and they could have. How about brushing that out? You talk about schools. We've got the Pope John Paul School, or St. John, I guess it gets sainted. We've got the Head Start right out here. We've got the middle school, the St. Francis Xavier Preparatory School is there. You talk about schools, there they are. Let's do something about it. And I'm mad as hell. But there is an emotional toll on the business people of Hyannis, on the residents of Hyannis. My wife would gladly leave the house that we live in if we could afford to. She'd be gone just like that. And that makes me sad, because I've been there all my life. The housing outside of Hyannis has to happen. We can't continue taking houses in Hyannis, putting them into social service agencies or nonprofits, taking them off the tax rolls for the village of Hyannis, for the fire district of Hyannis. We cannot continue to do that. Transitional houses degrade our neighborhoods because they don't create stability. They're in, they're out, they're in, they're out. We need to stop doing it to Hyannis. Hyannis is getting a lousy deal and has been for years. Nobody else would say, let's put some social service agencies in the old school over Osterville. Nobody would say that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cross.
Nobody would say, let's put them in the old county complex in Barnstable. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you just keep your applause? Let's hold your applause. Thank you.
So a couple of my constituents came tonight to speak. That would be Irene Elmer and Peter Cross, and they've been neighbors, as I think they said, for over 30 or 40 years now. Both school teachers, both really good people. I call them the defenders of Hyannis, and they need a break. You know, I mean, this has been on the backs of the Hyannis people for a really, really long time. So if you live in Sandwich and you come here, or you live somewhere else and you come here, it doesn't feel like that big of a problem, because you can have coffee on your back deck in your house and not have these distractions. You can put your house up for sale and not worry about your property value crashing. You know, you have a lot more freedom if you're not at ground zero. But we have businesses, like Mr. Feldman in the audience, he has a business in Hyannis. And, you know, he gets killed on TripAdvisor. And that really affects him. So, you know, you can look at it in a million different ways. As I've said before, I'm not interested in being inhumane. I want to help people. I want to help people. And I want to help the people that live here, too. The people that have a home, have property taxes. It's a really complicated issue, and I understand that. But I have to thank Irene and Peter for coming out and speaking up for my neighborhood, because we're really at a crossroads here and on a precipice.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and being a part of this discussion.
We have boards and commissions that you're responsible to, and November 10th will be my hearing that I will be holding on all of the calendar fees. And then later on down in the calendar, you might, the budget action calendar, you might note that